Hi, this is me on the Great Ocean Road in March 2013, doing the trip from Melbourne to Adelaide. And this is my brother taking, with his chunky fingers, zooming a bit too fast on the camera. So let me explain. I'm from the UK and my brother lives in Melbourne, Australia, so we don't see each other kind of like every other week. So it's kind of like special when we get together and have some brother time. And this is one of our brother time trips. Explain some more. I don't just have a brother in Australia, I also have an aunt and two cousins in Adelaide and another cousin in Melbourne. So it's unthinkable that I could come to Australia and not go to Adelaide or Melbourne. So every time I come, I always have to go to those two cities. There's no sneaking off to the Gold Coast and hit the parks. Anyway, on my first trip in '94, my uncle drove me from Melbourne to Adelaide on the main road, which is the way I came back on this trip. But I've never done this Great Ocean Road, so I decided I'd like to do it. And my brother's never done it, so he decided to come along as well. So we planned to have two stopovers, and this is the first day. And the Great Ocean Road is basically the first day. And we were very lucky because the weather was absolutely beautiful. It was just like it is in the brochure. Blue skies and everything. So all the shots you see on the first day, they look like, you know, they could be out of an advertisement out of a holiday brochure. We'd stopped off at the tourist office on the Great Ocean Road just as it started, and they tipped us off about this waterfall, because most of them in March are just dry, so this one was actually had a bit of water. And also they tipped us off on where to see some koalas, and they were literally just off the road. It was ridiculous. It was, you know, you just park the car off the road and they were there in the trees, and they're just coming up here. I did see, when I came in '94, I saw some koalas at the Grampians in the wild, but there were two here, and they look, although they were out in the wild, they look very tame to me. So I don't know if they've got some kind of like home, because this was a residential area. It was like a normal little road, but you can see them really clearly, and they're very, very cute. So this was the first time I've seen some proper Australian animals on this trip, so I was pretty chuffed. So I was happy. We were sharing the driving, my brother and I, so it's not too difficult because it wasn't too busy, and you're just going steadily, and we weren't rushing it because we had plenty of time. But I think we're coming up to here. This is Apollo Bay coming up here, where we stopped off for some lunch. I think it was here we stopped for lunch. But this really does remind me of California and the coastal drive there. The hills of California. It looks very similar to me. Beautiful, just wish I had more time. And this is of course the 12 Apostles. So this is one of the probably top 10 sites in Australia to visit. So yeah, look, I've got a great shot of me in front of the 12 Apostles. It was a bit tricky filming here because although it looks like we're just on our own, we weren't, because all the tour buses had followed us along the coast. They all arrive about the same time in the mid-afternoon, about 3 o'clock. So it was quite busy by the time we got there, and so I had to be a bit creative the way I filmed it. So it makes it look like we got it to ourselves, but that's not the case. We had pre-booked our accommodation, but I wish we had in hindsight booked it around here, so we could have spent a bit more time at the 12 Apostles exploring the area, because you obviously can get down to the beach there, so it must be really nice to just walk along and take it in. But we had quite a lot of time there, and so we weren't rushed or anything, unlike I think the tour things where you're given a set amount of time. So well, I presume it is pretty rushed. So we carried on along the coast, going away from Melbourne. I think the coaches go back inland, so it gets back a bit quicker, but it's still a good few hours drive. And we had a little time exploring the Bay of Islands Coastal Park, so a lot of the footage coming up is where we stopped off and there's little coves, and you can go exploring like this, and go down to the beach as well. So I've got quite a lot of footage. So what I might explain is why I'm wearing a sling. I've literally been in Melbourne about 2-3 days, and we've been in a restaurant, and we literally just got in and we was about to order, and I was kind of like seated against a wall, and I turned and I yanked my shoulder out and dislocated it. And I don't know how I did it. It was just like a reflex action. So I was totally caught by surprise. So although I've dislocated it before, it's still a shock, and it's really uncomfortable. And I couldn't get it back in myself, and so I needed professional help. Eventually, the first aid and the ambulance people came, and they looked at me, and what I didn't know about Australia is you need ambulance insurance. So although of course I took health insurance and travel insurance, I wasn't quite sure whether it covered it. So they got me a taxi to go to the hospital, which was literally only 5 minutes away because we were in central Melbourne, so it wasn't a big issue. But it's something you should be aware of. I never travel anywhere without having health insurance, because once or twice I have had to claim, and you never know what's going to happen. Oh, there's me with my sling, and this was a few days after, and it was almost back to normal. Although it was dislocated, I was in the hotels when we went to in the evenings. I went swimming, so gentle swimming, not long lengths. But I was almost back to normal within about two days. So I think I've got to the stage in my life where my shoulder will dislocate and go back in quite easily. Even though I had an operation 10 years ago to fix it, the trouble is it doesn't last forever. You get older. So I've had a bit of footage on the second day of Port Fairy, but I've had to cut it because the film won't let me upload more than 15 minutes. So I've had to cut some bits out, unfortunately, but we started in Port Fairy on the next day. So the second day, my brother and I shared the driving as usual, but it was different from the first day. Although it's still rural Australia, there's no really big towns or anything. The roads are very long. There's some shots coming up you'll see in a moment of what it's like, and it's a little bit monotonous the second day. It wasn't so interesting, and it's just a matter of grinding out the miles. So we did stop at Mount Gambier here and the Blue Lake, and I remember it being kind of like really rainy, but it looks quite nice. So I only got a quick shot of it, and then we carried on along the coast to Robe, and this is kind of like typical of the road that day. It was just, you can imagine Mad Max driving it. It's just long, featureless, maybe some arable land. That's about it. It's just on and on and on and on, and it goes on forever. So you put the cruise control on and just sit back. There's not even much traffic going the other way or anything. This is quite remote Australia. So this is the third day, and this is just outside Robe, which is a holiday town in the middle of nowhere, quite literally. And this is something I've never done before, and so it's the first time for me. We went driving on the beach because my brother's got a 4x4, so a really good experience. And this was quite early in the morning before breakfast, because we thought the weather might turn or the tide might turn and cut us all off. So we went just to have a quick go, and then we went back to Robe to have a breakfast, and then we came back and we drove properly along. It goes on for a good few miles going this way. This is heading the Adelaide way, and you can see it's fabulous. It's empty, long beaches. You can't see the other end. It does end eventually. I'll show you in the end. And we were kind of like going backwards and forwards, and I was getting out to do some shooting of the film and stuff, and having a bit of fun. It's not quite as easy as it looks. It's not just a matter of putting your foot down on the accelerator. The sand is soft, and if you go too fast, you start to kind of like swerve. So you try and stick to the tracks. There's me. So it's the first time and probably the last time I'm ever going to drive on the beach. I can't think of anywhere in England where you can do it, where it's legal to do it. There must be places, but there's not, miles and miles of empty beaches anywhere as far as I'm aware. So this is this is probably a once in a lifetime experience for me. Look at this beach. Imagine what it's like on a blue sky day. Just completely empty. There's nobody walking their dogs around here. It's just so remote. So we're doing this for about maybe an hour, I think it was, and we're not quite at the end here. But when we got to the end, I kind of left my iPhone on the back seat, and there's one of the exits. There's one or two exits to get you back to the main road. So that's not the one we took when we came out eventually. I'll show you that in a moment. But going back to my iPhone story, I left the iPhone on the back seat, and I don't know, when we were fluffing around and filming, it must have fallen out. So when I tried to look for it, I couldn't find it, and so we tried to find it. And then my brother used his phone used his phone to call it, and we found it just where the car had been parked. So luckily I found the iPhone, I didn't lose it. So I felt a bit stupid, but there was no harm done. But it's quite useful having his phone there and helping to locate mine. And this is somebody else. I think this was the only car we saw. I think you can going south from Road. You can go for like 100 miles on the beach driving it, and I don't think there's much in between. So you need to be pretty well supplied. We were going towards the Adelaide side, and we were a little bit worried about the tide, but I think it was all okay. It wasn't going to be a big problem. So this is our final run, and I think in the distance there, that's where it ends. So it must have been, I think it was about 5 or 6 miles long before it kind of like, at the end it just peters out, and you have to follow the little pathway off and exit out back to the main road. So this is us scouting out how we're going to do it, and this is where I lost my iPhone. Lost and found it. And it was over there. Yeah, you see where the car was parked? That's where I left the iPhone. So and then we had to make the exit out, so it was a little bit tricky, this bit, and you definitely need a 4-wheel drive to do this section, and I didn't feel very confident driving this, so I let my brother do it, who's been through proper training, and you'll see why in a moment, because it's quite steep. It's on one side particularly, and it's very sandy, so I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. So I let him do it, but we didn't have any problems here, so he got us back onto the main track, and then we made our exit out. So driving on the beach, that was probably the highlight of the third day. It was really good fun, and I'm glad I got all this footage to keep it, because I'm probably never going to do it again. It's the parks for me next time I'm in Australia. Anyway, we're heading back to the main road, and there was a nice section. Let me have a look at the map here where it was. Where was it? Beyond Road. Oh, it's Kurrung National Park. It's very bleak, and I didn't take any pictures of it, but it's a long, straight section, and the road is behind the kind of like the beach. So it looked quite interesting. But we didn't have time to stop. I think this is the Murray here, crossing across south of Murray Bridge, because I think we would have had to have gone all the way up to Murray Bridge to cross the road bridge. So we got the ferry, and then we cut across country down to Moana, Seaford, where my aunt lives, and South Adelaide. And that was it. It was a good road trip. So we did it in about just over 2.5 days, the whole trip. So doing it the long way on the Great Ocean Road. So it's well recommended, this road trip. That's the end of the film. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.